Okay, bonjour. Apparently there was an issue with my first video. I didn't realize it stopped showing the slides like a minute and a half on. It's because I presented my screen to show you what the notes look like. So I'm not gonna do that. You should already have the notes ready now. If you don't, they're posted on the page where this video is. We're just gonna go through the negative adverbs that you guys are learning for Unit 3. This is the main grammar that is Unit 3. I don't think it's as hard as C clauses personally, but you will be the judge of that. So for these slides, when you go to fill in your notes, the words that are bolded and in this like tealy color are going to be the words that are blanks to fill in on your notes. And then you'll need to upload a copy of your notes completed to Canvas today for your points. So I've organized this into different parts and we kind of move from like easy negative adverbs to more difficult. So when we talk about negative adverbs, you guys already know the most basic negative adverb. A negative adverb is just a way to say not. So like, how do you make a sentence negative? Well, you just add a ne pas. So if we go to review on how to actually form a negative, in general, where does the ne pas go around when making a phrase negative en français? It goes around the verb, okay? If, by the way, I'm going too fast on this, you are welcome to pause and continue, obviously, because I can't see you writing it down. I don't know how fast you're writing it down. So here's a couple examples. Obviously, in present tense, je ne prends pas le bus, or in passé composé here, you have je n'ai pas pris le bus. So one thing to note here is that in passé composé, your verb is avoir or être. It is not pris, for example. That is a past participle. It is not a verb. So in passé composé, the rule still does apply in that the ne pas goes around the verb. So now you're going to learn the other ones, which are a little bit more complicated, but just as great to know in French. So we're going to start with the easy ones. There's a few ones that I've classified as pretty easy because it's not hard to figure out how to form them for grammar purposes. So like with ne pas, the following negative adverbs are still going to go around the verb, whether it's a simple tense, okay? So simple tense means it really, I mean, it's kind of a complicated grammar term, but a simple tense means it's like one word, which is your verb conjugated in whatever thing. So present tense, imparfait, future simple. Like you have a subject like to, and then one word after it's the verb conjugated. That's a simple tense. So all of your tenses except for one that you already know are considered simple tenses. So for now, you know already the present tense, imparfait, future simple, conditionnel. But you are still also going to know one other type of tense. So these are simple tenses. The other type is called composed tenses, which for you guys, all you know right now is le passé composé. You'll learn a couple more next year in French 4. All you do, whether it's simple or composed, is you are going to replace the pas with the new negative adverb. So you're still putting the ne pas around, except instead of ne pas, it's ne, and then whatever this new one is. So to review, the first negative adverb, the most basic, is ne pas. So here's a little chart that you should fill in. It means not, and then I have two examples here of how you use it in French. So I have a simple tense, which is present, and then I have a passé composé. You still just put it around the verb. The next one, which is new, is ne jamais. So ne jamais means never. You may have already seen this before earlier on, I'm not sure, in like French 1 or French 2. But if you look at the examples I have, it still follows the same rule. You still put it around the verb, okay? The only difference is instead of ne pas, it's ne jamais. All right, ne pas encore is the next one. And sometimes French people, it depends on what region you're in, they will pronounce this S and make a liaison, so ne pas encore. And then other places will say pas encore. I tend to say pas encore because that's typically what you hear in Paris, but it's kind of a preference thing, so I don't really care how you pronounce it. Pas encore rolls off the tongue more easily for me just because it's what I've heard more, but that's just because I haven't spent as much time in the regions that say pas encore. So for this one, you're just adding a second word after the pas, and it means not yet. So for example, il ne marche pas encore, or je n'ai pas encore fini. I haven't finished yet. And again, you still have the ne pas around the verb. The only difference is you add this second word encore, okay? The next one is ne rien. It's pronounced rien, and ne rien means nothing. So for this one, you have two examples, but again, you just put it around the verb. One thing to note about this one, in general in French, when you're like speaking informally and writing informally, like colloquially, they say, oftentimes French people will drop the ne and keep a pas. So for example, instead of saying like, je ne prends pas le bus, they say, je prends pas le bus. They drop the ne. Or sometimes they will like combine the ne with the subject, like je. So for example, instead of saying je ne pense pas, they say je ne pense pas. In French, with these other negative adverbs that you guys are learning now, sometimes when you drop the ne, it changes the meaning of the adverb to be the positive form. So for example, in this one, ne rien means nothing. But if you take away the ne and you just have the word rien, it means anything. It's the opposite, okay? So in this case, when you say, for example, je ne mange rien, it's I'm not eating anything, or I don't eat, or I eat nothing. If you take out the ne, it technically means I eat anything. But still in French, like in colloquial conversations, and especially with young people, they'll still drop the ne, but mean the negative. So it's just a matter of context. Okay, the next one, we're going to deal with the more complicated ones. But one thing to note here is that these complicated ones are only in passé composé. So, So the following negative adverbs are complicated because of how they are formed in le passé composé. So the ne will still go before the verb. That's not changing. But normally you would put the pas after the verb, okay, which is avoir, être. But for these negative adverbs that you're about to see, the pas, or well, I should say the not the pas, but the new pas is going to go after the past participle. Which is part 3 of the passé composé formula, subject, verb, past participle. So the first one is ne personne, and ne personne, it means, no one. So here in present tense, it doesn't change. Je ne vois personne. It's still around this verb. This is the verb voir. But if you look in passé composé, je n'ai vu personne, like technically this word should go after the A, but it doesn't because it's an exception. It's the complicated one. Think of it as the word personne is kind of long. It's a little too long to put in between A and vu, so they just smush it at the end. The next one is ne nulle part, and ne nulle part means nowhere. So again, in simple tenses, it doesn't change. You just put it around the verb. But in passé composé, you have the nulle part at the end. Je ne suis allé nulle part, which means I went nowhere. I didn't go anywhere. All right, now we have the ne que, which one thing to note here is that the ne que can become QU apostrophe if the next word starts with a vowel. And this one means only. So for example, elle n'a que trois cours. She only has 3 classes. Okay, she only has 3 classes. Like que technically means that, but in the negative form, it means only. The second example is passé composé. So again, is the verb in this sentence. I realize this pen is fat and you can't see around that, but is the verb. So you actually put the ne and then the que around both the verb and the past participle. Okay, ne que. And that means we only made 2 pies. Okay, the next set is the even more complicated ones. They're really not that more complicated. Well, the second one is. The first one is not too bad. But again, this is only in passé composé that we're talking about. So the first one is ne plus, and here you need to make sure that you know somewhere that this S is silent, ne plus. Because if you pronounce the S and say plus, it's the positive form, like to mean more, so you'll see soon. So ne plus means no longer or no more or anymore. So for example, je ne veux plus. So see what I did just there? I didn't even think about it. Je ne veux plus. Like I think I do that a lot where I smush the ne. but je ne veux plus, je ne veux plus, I don't want anymore. This one is rarely used in passé composé, and that's why it's kind of complicated. If you want to use this one in a past tense, you would actually use the imparfait. So that's like the thing to note here. The next one, though, is the super complicated one. So ne, ni, ni. This one has two parts. You have to have two ni's, and this one means neither nor. So the first thing to know is this. Okay, it will always be in two parts. It'll always, you can't just have one ni, you have to have two because you have to say neither nor. The next one I want to focus your attention on is just the simple tenses. So I know you're probably trying to write this all down as you watch the video, but just listen carefully because the simple tenses, this is the one that is kind of weird. So here I have two examples and it's separated by this verses thing. So the first one says, tu aimes les fleurs rouges ou les fleurs bleues? Do you like red flowers or blue flowers? And the answer to say I like neither red flowers nor blue flowers, look what happens. J'aime ni les fleurs rouges ni les fleurs bleues. So in general, the ne will still go before your verb, like je n'aime. But then the ni's will go after that, before each object, before each thing you're saying neither nor. Okay. But look at the second example, the one that's right here. This is the one that is the crazy rule. So look at this example. This says, tu veux un café ou un thé? Okay, or you could also say, tu veux du café ou du thé? And the answer is, je ne veux ni café ni thé. So the question is, well, what changes? Well, I didn't have any animation here. So here's the rule. If you notice in the first example about the flowers, the answer just says ni les fleurs rouges, ni les fleurs bleues. But the second one, it just says ni café, ni thé. We dropped the un or the du. So the rule is that if you have a definite article in your like original statement without the neither nor, like do you like red flowers or blue flowers, the red flowers or the blue flowers? If you have a definite article, you're going to keep it in the response. That's why in the answer, the first one, we said, je n'aime ni les fleurs rouges, ni les fleurs bleues. But if you have any other type of article like un thé or du or de la or de, you're going to drop that. This negative adverb is a little more complicated than that. For example, you will keep prepositions. So like, I'm not going to France or Italy. Well, the preposition to mean to in that case is en. So you say, je ne vais ni en France ni en Italie. But for right now, all you need to know that you keep definite articles, but you drop other types of articles. So indefinite, de, or partitive, which is du, de la, etc. In passé composé, the rule remains the same. It just goes at the end. But you still will follow the article rule, but the ni's go right before the things or the objects. Okay, the last ones are just the ones that they're like kind of complicated, but they just have an extra thing about them. And these are the negative adverbs that can also be subjects. So that means that you start your sentence with this subject. So the following negative adverbs can be a subject when starting a sentence. You just have to put the ne directly after the adverb in order for it to mean something negative, okay? So again, these two that you're about to see, they can be a subject. A subject is like saying I or you or he. This first one that you're gonna see is no one. You can put no one as a subject. You can say no one likes me or no one is coming to the mall. It can be a subject, okay? The things that you have to note here, there's kind of two things one thing I want you to know. When you have person, I need to go over that. Jeez, calm down. Okay, so you have to first have the ne right after the word person in order for it to mean negative. Because like I said earlier in this video, if you don't have the ne, sometimes the negative adverb, it ends up being the positive adverb. So in this case, if you don't have ne person, you have just the word person, it means anyone. It's the opposite. So if you say, like, for example, if you look at this example and we take out this ne, it just means anyone wants the pie. but because of the N there, it makes it negative. So the first thing to note is you have to have the N right after. The second thing is that when you have a subject like this, your verb is going to be conjugated like the EL form, okay? That's very important to note. It's the same in English. No one is coming. Well, is the conjugated form of the he, she, it. So the second one is rien, and rien can also be a subject. You can say nothing, like nothing is going my way or nothing will change, whatever. See, it's a very negative unit. So same thing here. You have to have the N right after it in order for it to mean the negative, and you have to conjugate your verb like the EL of whatever comes next, okay? So that's the end of the presentation. This video is actually shorter than my first video. My hair looked better in my first video, but that's okay. I don't know yet when I'm coming back from Texas, but I think that I'll be here definitely while we are remote. So you can expect no Google Meets for this week or next week, but I do need you to upload a picture of your completed notes from this video for today so you get your points. And then on Friday this week, you're gonna have a small little practice on Canvas to practice this. And then all next week, you're gonna practice. We already have the dates set for your vocab quiz this unit and this grammar quiz. It's not a super long unit. It's not as complicated as C classes, I don't think. So your vocab quiz and your grammar quiz, the vocab quiz is going to be online and the grammar quiz is going to be in person, which might change. And it's going to be the week before Thanksgiving. So just as a heads up. And then we just have one more like mini unit for what we call it for the month of December after Thanksgiving, but it's just learning countries. So that's all I have for you guys. So au revoir.